From the shadows, she appears. Jennylyn show, illuminates and tells me all yearn to know. With beats that pulse and sense that ignite, taking us to new heights.
You are watching Conversations with Jennylyn, and you're watching Jennylyn. Except today, once again, I am having a conversation by myself because I am continuing a segment I started some weeks ago, and I'm sharing a story. Actually, it's my story, and it's exactly what started happening to me approximately 19 years ago. Over the course of 19 years, the situation has intensified, and if you haven't seen the previous segments, so that you're not lost, I would encourage you to go watch those, because then it would explain the continuum that I'm sharing today. And today I'm on segment what I'm calling 7. Not everything I've shared has happened in the order that I'm sharing it, but it's helping to tie the story together. Although I've stayed pretty true to the sequence of events in the way I have segmented it. Today is segment 7, like I said, and every week I dedicate my segments to the people that I feel have taken time out of their schedules to support me during this time. And although they may have felt like I was crazy or they couldn't relate to what I'm sharing, they showed true affection and support and care. And today, one of those top people that I'm dedicating this segment to is a good friend called Jamie Smale, who lives in Scotland. And he used to stay up late hours until like wee hours of the morning, just being supportive and talking to me. If it was one of the nights where the attacks were overwhelmingly out of control and I was feeling overwhelmed, he stayed up and talked to me and encouraged me. The other person is Laura and Gino, a very good friend who now lives in Italy. She's Italian, but for the majority of this situation or this experience that I'm sharing, she lived in Los Angeles. And the other woman that I'm dedicating tonight's segment to is Marika Karen. And Marika was there every single Monday night. She manages a very famous bedding store in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's a French store. And she worked every day except Sunday and Monday. And she always found the time to include me in her Mondays and Sundays that she had off of work, either by making dinner for me at her home and feeding me with her family, or coming to my home and enjoying whatever I could provide for us both. But these people live in my heart, and I will never be able to find the words to express the gratitude that I carry in my heart for them. I think none of them are really familiar or even aware of the impact they've had, but they have, and I thank God for them often. And my star, Melanie Lawson, that we call Mel. You can find her on Shine, or you can contact her by emailing shineyourlight1113333@gmail.com. And it's because of Mel that I now stand in my full power and know that I will conquer this. Just like every battle, though, it's not over because when you're battling bullies, when they realize they're losing their power, like I mentioned in an earlier segment, they bring out the big guns. And so we're dealing with that now. But Mel has really gone out of her way to hold me up when I am feeling weak at this time. And actually, I didn't ask her permission to do this, but I don't think she would mind that I'm sharing this exchanged exchange that we shared this morning. I had a difficult day yesterday. I was under heavy spiritual attack and I had great difficulty managing. And so this morning, I wasn't my usual positive, happy self. And Mel held me up once again and reminded me that I have to stay strong. And I made a comment to her about, I don't want to repeat it here, but it wasn't a very positive comment about myself and how I'm handling this situation at this time. And this is what she wrote to me. She said, I admire your strength, Jennylyn. I really do. You are a warrior, unlike anyone I've ever met. She brought me to tears with this because I was feeling like I was weak. And so when she sent this to me this morning, she will not know, but it was like refueling my tank, which was running low because I wasn't allowed to sleep much last night. And yesterday I was not feeling well and I was spiritually attacked the entire day. So I wrote to her and I told her this morning, she hasn't heard my entire story. So sometimes if I'm sounding like I'm negative or tired, that's because she hasn't heard all of the story. And this is what she wrote to me. And this is why I can't stop singing her praises. And I cannot wait to share her with you. She said, I don't have to know your entire story to know that you are one hell of a warrior. I also see a person who, despite all she's gone through, has continued to reach for the light. Your emotions and experiences are a part of your story, regardless of how difficult. You wouldn't be who you are today if it wasn't for these experiences. And so today, I wanted to start the segment with this. Sorry if I'm sounding a little bit emotional. This stuff is emotional, to say the least. Having shared all of this, I want to share my segment today with you. I told you last week, today I would talk about the move. So last week I shared when I was trying to get the job with Delta Airlines and the attacks and the spiritual sacrifices or rituals that were actually taken to my master bedroom. Sometimes when I'm talking about this, I feel like I'm a nut. So if you are watching this and experiencing those emotions listening to me, I get it. It's not easy to believe. But I'm a woman of light and love, and I do not like people deceiving me. So I can promise you that everything I am sharing here with you, I experienced 100%. And to the best of my memory, I am sharing it as such. Now you can trust my memory because these experiences leave indelible marks and memories. You do not forget. You can't. So, like I said earlier in a previous segment, I was moving house by myself. I noticed a lot of people had fallen off of my life. I think in listening to me and what I was sharing, they probably thought Jennylyn has lost her marbles, and I interact, the least interactions I have with her, the better it will be for my mental health. At least that's how I felt, apart from the names that I dedicate sessions to. Marika would have helped me, but she was busy running her store and only had 2 days off, so she wasn't able to help me. Cheryl, who always held my hand through everything, shared the adjoining unit in the building I lived in, which we were both given notices to vacate and 1 month to move. I think 1 or 2 months that she couldn't help me because she lived in her place longer than I and had way more stuff to move, and so she couldn't help me. And everyone else who normally helped me couldn't help me because they had to go to work. So I was on my own with this move. And I did the best I could. I started in the mornings, I packed these boxes. I look at some of those boxes now and wonder how I moved them, but I did because I am someone, when there's need, the adrenaline kicks in. And when that adrenaline kicks in, I can move a mountain, as I did. Because looking back, I do feel like I moved mountains. So every day, I would pack these boxes, put them in the garage, and then when I could, I moved them to the storage. Now, I want to go back to the storage. I had difficulties finding a storage I could afford. So I picked not the largest unit, but the next to the largest. And I signed a contract with extra storage. And after taking the first load, I realized that storage unit would never work. Because I did not intend to move to New York. I was planning to store everything, come to New York, spend some time with my mother and my friends, and then go back to San Francisco and move into a new place. So I sold a lot of stuff, but I kept a lot that I could have thrown out had I known that I would be relocating cross country. So I went back and I changed the unit to the most expensive and largest unit that they had and started transporting my stuff there every day. The day before my big move, I had taken down the camera, which I mentioned that I had installed, that I was told to install because of the harassment from Cassandra. And the day before I moved out, a friend and her husband came, and it was a Ring camera, so I didn't want to leave it there. So they removed it for me. And I cleaned it and I packed it, intending to install it on the new place that I was going to move to. The day and the afternoon after I had removed the camera, the next day in the afternoon, I received a video from Cheryl from her camera. I don't think CasSandra T realized that Cheryl had installed a camera as well, because their camera was inside. I don't think it was outside like mine was. Mine was the big Ring visible camera. You couldn't miss it. And when I looked at the video, she sent me a video, and the video said, "Hi, Jenny, do you know these Chinese people?" And I looked at the video, and there were some Chinese people outside in the front of my house where our mailboxes were located, digging and planting something in the ground at the root where my mailbox was anchored in the ground. And I looked at it and I thought, oh my God, who are these people? What are they doing? Immediately, I knew Cassandra Tong sent them there. Only God knows why she sent them. So I ran over to Cheryl and I go, what is this? No, of course I don't know these people. What do you think they're doing? And she goes, they're burying something. And I go, but what and why? And we both looked at each other and immediately we realized what was happening. So we decided we were going to dig it up. And after a while, we looked at each other like, what are we digging up? We didn't know. We didn't find anything. And so I knew then that she had done another ritual. And I couldn't imagine what it could be. Because if your mind is dark and if you don't have experience with this stuff, you can't envision or imagine what it would be. That night, I started to get sick, very sick. In fact, I was scared I had caught COVID because it was during that time. COVID had just started tapering off, and I'd been dealing with so much, with so little sleep. And when I did get to bed at night, I was not allowed to sleep, that it was almost inevitable that I got sick. The day of the move, okay, the night of the move, I had a fever of 102. And I was thinking that I had to go to the hospital. But how can I go to the hospital? The day of the move, I had to get everything out of the house. I had to go back to the house, clean it, and have the keys ready to hand over at 3. Now, I am someone who keeps my home as clean as possible while I'm living in it. And I had started cleaning rooms as I emptied them. So I really didn't have that much cleaning to do, but I had a lot of stuff to transport from my home to the storage. And I had made arrangements with the moving company to come and move my belongings. Now, I need to tell you, a week before I hired the moving company, I was woken up in the middle of the night and given the name Martin. And I wrote it down. And would you believe it? When I found a moving company, I called several. A man answered by the name of Martin. And I knew then my guides were sending me to that man to move me. So I hired Martin. He was a Spanish gentleman from Mexico, and he told me he would come with, I think, 2 workers. So the day of the move, just like they said they would, they arrived. They had to wrap like my bed, because I had a very expensive bed, and I wanted them to please package it carefully because I didn't want it to get damaged. So they packaged everything. They got the first load on the truck. Like I told you, I had to be out of the house at 3 because someone was coming to do the walkthrough with me, and I had to hand over the keys. So we got the first load ready, and I told them that I would have to trust them because I didn't have anyone to stay at the unit or anybody to stay at the house, and someone to stay at the house. I had to be both places. So they loaded up the truck, and I drove ahead of them, and they followed me. I was going to take them to the unit, show them where it is, open it, leave them to come and go back to the house so that I could continue cleaning. So I didn't waste time sitting at the unit while they were unloading everything. Cheryl picked up breakfast and lunch for me because she knew I was sick. She brought medicine, she brought breakfast and food, and then she ran back over because she had to do the same thing I was doing, except she was going to get her family to help her. Got to the storage unit, punched in the code. The gate would not open. The full truck of all my belongings are sitting behind me, waiting on me to open the gate. It didn't matter what I did. The gate would not open. It's a Sunday. I called every one of their toll-free numbers. No one would answer. I did not know what to do. I stood there panicked. I sat down on the road and started bawling, seriously, because I didn't know what else I could do. Martin got out of the truck. He came over to me and asked me, what is going on? I said, I don't know. I go, read. These are the codes they gave me. I'm doing exactly what they tell me. I cannot get the gate to open, and I don't know what to do. Amidst this, a truck pulled up behind us, and I flagged them down. It was a young couple. I said, good morning. My name is Jennylyn. I rented a storage space in there, but for some reason, my code isn't working and I cannot get in. I have to be out of my home today at 3. I am not a crook. I'm a very honest, upstanding citizen. I have a television show. Thank you for my TV show. And I've interviewed people like Mr. Steve Wozniak and the co-founder of Oracle and the first scientist of Amazon. I am not a crook. Could I please use your code? Because there's no other way to get in. I can follow you in now, but I have other loads that the truck has to bring. And when they come back, they wouldn't have a way in. And they looked at each other like, should we trust her? And I reached in my handbag and I pulled out one of my business cards that actually had Mr. Steve Wozniak on the back of the card. And they looked at it and they said, here's our codes. And I took a picture of it. And that's how I was able to get my things into the storage. Meanwhile, my fever spiked and I felt like I just wanted to lie down. I couldn't do much more. The guys on the truck told me, don't do anything. Just go back to the house and sit down. After we load the truck, we'll help you with the other things you have to do. I couldn't believe that God had sent me these wonderful people, and clearly the universe, God, knew what the curse was that was done at the mailbox when that CasSandra had whatever buried. And so he made sure he provided me with protection that I didn't even know. That is why I was given the name Martin. I went back home. I stopped at Kentucky Fried Chicken. I picked up lunch for those guys, went back to the house, and they came back, picked up the stuff, and went back and forth. I wish I know the people, the names of the people who trusted me by giving me their code. And I thank God for my show and Mr. Wozniak. You saved me that day because after they looked at the card, they could see it was me because my picture's also on the card. They trusted me. I often wonder what I would have done if those people did not come by that day to let me into the gates. Later on, the day after, I found out that when I changed units to a bigger unit, that had a different number. And the person who handled my paperwork neglected to give me that information. And that is why the code I had didn't let me in, because that code was no longer registered to my name. I got everything in the storage. It was so packed we could barely put the lock on it. We were finished to move at 2:30, just barely enough time to drive back from the unit to the house to meet with a real estate person that I was going to do the walkthrough and hand over the keys. I had little things like taking trash out, but she was very cooperative because she could see that I was sick. I stood in front of the unit where my things were and broke down. I think it was a combination of being sick, a combination of what had been done that morning, and there were several other things that happened that day. I finished the walkthrough. I stood in front of the shed, looking at everything in it and thinking, after all these years on this earth, I've done nothing but try to help people. Like I mentioned, I haven't been a saint. I have hurt people. I have made decisions intending with good intentions, but didn't quite work out that way, and people were hurt. I've never been someone who will sit and contrive and plan to hurt people. It just doesn't, it's not a part of my makeup. I'm intrinsically wired to do good, although it hasn't always worked out that way all the time. And so I couldn't understand when every day I wake up and try to do better, even my television show, the people that I interview, the whole goal of bringing them on the show is to encourage and inspire someone with another person's story. How come I have ended up in this place where I am now standing in front of everything that I own after all of these years? And while I was standing in front of the shed, my phone rang, and it was Dina, the flight attendant, who tried to talk me and help me to get work and to pick up what was buried in the ground that opened up the portals that allowed or helped the attacks I got every night. She called me and I was crying, and she said, "Why are you crying?" And I didn't answer because she knew I was crying. And she said, "You're not going to a hotel," because that was my plan. I'd made reservation at a hotel where I was going to stay until I flew to New York because I didn't want to bother anyone. And she said, "You're not going to a hotel tonight. You're coming to our home. We have dinner ready for you. We have a hot shower ready for you, and we want you to come here." So I drove to her house. I cried all the way. I felt sorry for myself. I felt ill. I ached everywhere. I had a really high fever. I did not want to go to their house because I didn't want to get them sick. She didn't care. She said, "You shouldn't be alone tonight." Actually, the night before the move, I didn't stay at my home either. I stayed at her house because my bed had been taken apart and I didn't have anywhere to sleep. And so I went back to their house. I had dinner, and the next morning I went to the hotel because I was going to fly out of San Francisco later that day. And I went to the airport once again, almost missed my flight. I got there on time. There was a lot of confusion. These details will be in the book. And then I flew to New York, hoping that I was turning a new leaf and that all of the crazy things that were taking place in my life in San Francisco had now come to an end because I was leaving it in California. Little did I know how sick, how insane this person is. This week, and Mel will share this when I bring her on the show. Actually, not this week, last week, I found out this person was living off of my energy. Yes, she was stealing my essence. I still don't understand it, so I'm not expecting you to understand. But I can tell you this. Mel removed whatever she was doing that enabled her to do that. And the very next day, I ended up in the emergency. I was at work and I got a spiritual attack like you wouldn't believe it because it felt real. And I'm going to show you my arm. This is kind of what is left from it. When I went to the emergency, my boss had someone take me to the emergency. How do I do this so you guys could see it? There you go. This is more than 10 days old. I was at work and I felt like someone stuck me in the heart with a dagger. It was the most intense pain I've ever felt in my chest. And it moved up to my head, came down both of my arms, and they felt I had this numbing pain that lasted for about 3 minutes. It scared the crap out of me. A coworker saw me in the lobby. The color had drained from my face, and my boss insisted that I go to the emergency. I was taken to the emergency. They ran every test under the sun. And the only good thing about that is that I found out I'm 100% healthy. They found nothing. While I was there, Mel asked how I was doing. I text her back, "You won't believe it. I'm in the emergency. And I don't know what is wrong with me." And this was her response. And she will tell you when I bring her on. Well, one thing I do know is you just had an intense spiritual attack. And I am going to leave it there because the rest, I have one other segment to share with you, and it will be about the move from California to New York and the way CasSandra tried to sabotage that as well. I can tell you this, everything she does is to drain my pocketbook. Every time I get some money to try to help me ground myself, I have an intense spiritual attack that drains it once again because her goal is to keep me penniless because she thinks in that situation she has power over me. But you never will because CasSandra, I keep on telling you, and I don't think you're hearing me, dark cannot put out light. You want to have a war with me, you are fighting by yourself. Because every attack you send to me, you're actually attacking the God in me. You are not attacking. You may be attacking my physical vessel, but you cannot break my spirit. And once again, CasSandra, I am sending you light and love because we reap what we sow. Thank you all so much for continuing to watch this. Like I tell you every week, I am doing this because I've been divinely instructed to share this story. And the goal of it is so if anybody else, because I cannot be the only one, although Mel thinks I'm the strongest one, that is struggling, don't be ashamed and don't hide and don't continue to suffer. God wants you to get help. I don't know all the helpers in the world, but the one I know, Mel, again, I tell you, is a woman of integrity. She is the first person I communicate with every single morning, and oftentimes the last at night. And she's not someone looking to get rich off of people's plights. She is someone God has chosen to help save his captives, one of. And I am so blessed to have her. If you want Mel's details, please look in the bottom of this video. Her information is there. Follow her on TikTok. She will inspire you because every day she brings messages for the world from the angels and the guides that are very inspiring and are keeping you aligned with what is occurring in the world so you can protect yourself. And she is coming on soon. I cannot wait to share her with you for a second time because she has been on my show before, but not in this capacity. And I thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. Every like you give me is helping me to reach more people who are suffering. And I will be back next week. Thank you.
From the shadows, she appears, Jennylyn.